Her name was Mira, 44, 2 floors above me in a building that should have condemned half its outlets. I'd moved in 3 months ago, fresh out of a breakup that still tasted like cheap beer and bad excuses. She'd been there the whole time. I just hadn't looked. Until the night her kitchen pipe burst. It was 11. I was in sweatpants, reheating coffee I'd made that morning. The knock came soft, almost apologetic. When I opened the door, she was standing there in a soaked hoodie, bare feet, water dripping off her chin. "I'm so sorry," she said. "My landlord isn't answering. And I don't know who else to ask." I said, "Yeah, sure," like it was nothing. Like my chest hadn't just done something strange. Her apartment smelled like old books and wet plaster. Water was pooling under the sink, spreading toward a stack of papers on the floor. I grabbed a wrench from my bag. I wasn't a plumber, but I'd grown up in houses that broke every winter. She stood behind me, arms crossed, chewing on her lower lip. "You don't have to do this," she said. Almost done. Silence. Just the drip, drip, drip and the sound of both of us breathing. Then she said, "You're younger than I thought." I looked up. She was watching me. Not the pipe, not the water. Asterisk me. Asterisk like she was trying to solve something. "How old are you?" she asked. 24. She nodded slowly. "I have shoes older than you." It was a joke. It landed wrong. Too quiet. Too real. I turned back to the pipe, tightened the last fitting, and sat back on my heels. That should hold until morning. She didn't answer. When I looked up again, she was holding out a towel, not for the floor, for my hands. I took it. Our fingers brushed. Neither of us pulled away for a full second too long. Then she brought one finger to her lips. Asterisk shoe. Asterisk not in a playful way. In a don't say this out loud way. "Stay," she whispered. "Just for a minute." And I did. That was the mistake I'd make 100 times over. I sat on her couch. The one with the torn armrest and the blanket that smelled like lavender and something older. Grief, maybe. Or just exhaustion. She disappeared into the kitchen, came back with 2 glasses and a bottle of wine that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "You don't have to," I said. "I know." She poured anyway. The apartment was small. 1 bedroom, probably. Dishes in the sink. A photograph on the shelf. Her with a man, both younger. His arm around her waist. Her smiling in a way I hadn't seen yet. Not even close. She caught me looking. "That's David," she said. "Ex-husband. Left 2 years ago. Took the dog and the good towels." Which one hurt more? She blinked. Then laughed, short, honest, cracked at the edges. "The dog." I didn't believe her. But I didn't say that. She sat beside me. Not far. Not close. Exactly far enough that I could feel the heat from her arm without touching it. That space between us started breathing on its own. "Why are you being nice to me?" she asked. "Because your pipe burst." "No." She shook her head. "Before that, you say hi in the hallway. You held the door that one time when my hands were full. You look at me like..." She stopped. "Like what?" She took a sip of wine. Didn't answer. I noticed things I shouldn't have noticed. The gray at her temples that she probably dyed every 6 weeks. The small scar above her eyebrow. The way her fingers tapped her knee when she was nervous. 15 taps, then a pause, then 15 more. "You're doing it again," she said. "Doing what?" "Looking." I should have apologized. Looked away. Made a joke about the wine hitting too fast. Instead, I said, "You have nice hands." She went very still. The room got smaller. The silence got louder. Her hand was on the couch between us, fingers curled slightly, like she was holding something invisible. I watched her chest rise. Fall. Rise again. Then she reached over and touched my forearm. Just her fingertips. Just below the sleeve of my sweater. "Stay," she said again. But this time it wasn't a whisper. It was a question dressed like a command. I opened my mouth. And for one terrible, gorgeous second, I almost threw everything away right there. I didn't say it. Whatever it was, confession, warning, the beginning of something I couldn't take back. It died on my tongue when her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She didn't move. Neither did I. The phone buzzed again. Then a third time. "You should get that," I said. I really shouldn't. But she pulled her hand back. The warmth on my forearm faded into something that felt like loss. She reached for the phone, glanced at the screen, and her jaw tightened. "It's him," she said. "David. David." She didn't pick up. Just watched the name glow and dim, glow and dim. He does this. Calls late. Drunk, maybe. Or lonely. I can never tell which is worse. "Why do you still answer?" She looked at me then. Really looked. Like she was measuring the distance between us in inches and memories both. "I don't," she said. "Anymore." The phone went silent. The apartment felt too quiet now. No dripping pipe. No wine pouring. No excuses left. I stood up. "I should go." "You should," she agreed. Neither of us moved toward the door. I was standing. She was sitting. The coffee table between us felt like a fence you climb only when you've decided the other side is worth the fall. "I'm not looking for anything," I said. "Good. I'm not trying to complicate your life." "Even better. And I can't stop thinking about your hands." The words came out before I could stop them. She didn't flinch. Didn't smile. Just sat there with her wine glass half empty and her ex-husband's name still cooling on the screen. "You're 24, she said softly. "I know how old I am. That's the problem. I know how old I am." She stood up. We were closer now. Close enough that I could see the slight tremor in her lower lip. Close enough that if I breathed wrong, we'd be touching. She didn't say stay this time. She didn't have to. Her hand found mine in the dark between us. Held it. Not for a second. Not for comfort. For permission. And that's when we heard the knock at her door. 3 knocks. Heavy. Deliberate. Myra's grip on my hand turned to stone. Her eyes went wide. Not scared exactly. Asterisk caught. Asterisk like we'd already done something worth answering for. "Don't," I whispered. "I have to." She walked to the door. I stayed where I was, 10 feet back. Hands in my pockets like that made me innocent. She opened it 2 inches. Then 6. David. Taller than his photo. Thinner. Hair grayer at the edges. He smelled like whiskey and the kind of regret that shows up uninvited at midnight. "Mira." His voice was soft. Broken. The voice of a man who'd already lost everything and kept coming back to check the rubble. "I know I shouldn't be here." "Then why are you?" He glanced past her. Saw me. Something flickered across his face. Jealousy. Relief. Both. "You've got company," he said. "I've got a neighbor who fixed my pipe." David laughed. It wasn't kind. "At midnight." 11, she said. "And it's none of your business." The silence that followed was ugly. The kind of silence where people decide whether to fight or leave. I should have left. I should have walked out, closed her door behind me, and pretended the last hour never happened. I didn't move. David looked at me again. "How old are you, kid?" "Old enough to know when I'm not wanted." "Good. Then you know where the stairs are." Mira stepped between us. Not dramatically, just one small step. Her shoulder brushed my chest. She smelled like lavender and whatever happens to people after 2 years of being left. "David," she said, "go home." "Are you sleeping with him?" The question landed like a slap. Mira didn't answer. She just stood there, back to me, facing the man she'd married. And in that silence, I realized she wasn't denying it because it wasn't true. She was denying it because she wished it was. "I should go," I said. "No." That was her. One word. Not loud. Not pleading. Just no. Like she'd finally decided something. David stared at her. Then at me. Then back at her. "You're making a mistake," he said. "I already made mine," she replied. 2 years ago. When I let you leave the first time." He left. The door clicked shut. And then it was just us. The wine. The wet floor. Her hand still reaching toward me like I was the only solid thing in a room that kept tilting. "Stay," she whispered. I cupped her face. She closed her eyes. "I can't be careful with you," I said. She opened her eyes. Smiled. Broke my heart before I even kissed her. "Then don't be." I kissed her. Not the way I'd imagined in the hallway at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. Not soft. Not slow. The kind of kiss that happens when 2 people have run out of reasons to say no. She pulled me by the collar. I backed her against the wall. Her hands were everywhere. My chest, my hair, the hem of my shirt like she was trying to memorize fabric. Then she stopped. Just stopped. Hands flat against my shoulders. Breathing hard. "We can't," she said. "Okay. I mean it. Okay." She didn't push me away. Neither of us moved. Her forehead pressed against mine. The apartment was so quiet I could hear her swallow. You're going to regret this, she whispered. How do you know? Because I regret everything. I touched her wrist, felt her pulse hammering, fast, scared, alive. Do you regret this right now? She didn't answer for a long time. No, she finally said. That's what scares me. We stayed like that. Minutes, maybe. The wine went warm. The pipe held. The world outside her door kept spinning without us. Then she took my hand and led me to the bedroom. The sheets were white. Her shoulder pressed against my chest. One leg tangled between mine. She traced a line down my arm, slow, distracted, like she was reading Braille she didn't understand. You should hate me, she said. I don't. I'm 20 years older than you. I can count. She laughed. It hurt. I heard it in her throat. My friends will call you a mistake. Let them. My ex-husband left you 2 years ago. I turned to face her. She looked younger in the dark, or maybe just less defended. You're not his anymore, Mira. Her eyes glistened. She blinked hard. Didn't cry. You don't know me, she said. Then let me stay long enough to learn. She stared at the ceiling. I watched her think, watched the guilt and the want and the shame all fight for space on her face. You're going to leave, she said quietly. Eventually. They all do. I didn't promise I wouldn't. Promises like that break too easily. Instead, I pulled her closer, kissed the top of her head, let the silence say what I couldn't. Outside, it started to rain. She fell asleep first, her hand still holding mine, like she was afraid I'd disappear before morning. I stayed awake, watched her breathe, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I felt like I was finally standing still. Morning came through her blinds like a lyre, soft, golden, pretending everything was simple. I was still there. She woke up slowly. Her fingers found my wrist before her eyes opened. Checking. Making sure. You stayed, she said. I said I would. No, you didn't. She propped herself up on one elbow. Her hair was a mess. No makeup. The gray at her temples caught the light. She'd never looked more beautiful. You said, let me stay long enough to learn. That's not a promise. What is it then? She thought about it, ran her thumb across my knuckles. A warning, she whispered. We made coffee in silence. Not the bad kind of silence. The kind where two people are trying to figure out if they're allowed to be happy. She leaned against the counter. I stood by the window. The building across the street was waking up. Someone yelled at a kid. A car wouldn't start. Normal life. Happening without us. I told myself I wouldn't do this, she said. Do what? Feel something again. She wrapped her hands around her mug. Didn't drink. After David left, I built this whole life out of fine. I'm fine. The apartment is fine. Work is fine. Fine became a room with no doors, and I just lived there. And now, she looked at me. Really looked. Now you fixed my pipe and stayed too long and kissed me like you meant it. She shook her head. Now I'm standing in my kitchen at 7 in the morning, and I don't feel fine at all. I set my mug down. Mira, don't. Don't what? Don't say something you'll take back in a week. I crossed the kitchen, took her mug, set it next to mine. She didn't stop me. I'm not David, I said. I know. I'm not a rebound. I'm not confused. I'm not looking for a mom or a teacher or a story to tell my friends. I held her face again, the same way I had last night. Her skin was warmer now, less desperate. I'm just a guy who saw you in the hallway 6 months ago and couldn't look away. Her breath caught. You never said that. I'm saying it now. She closed her eyes. Open them. A tear slipped down, just one. She wiped it before I could. We're going to hurt each other, she said. Probably. That's not a good reason to start something. No, I agreed. But it's not a good reason to stop, either. She stared at me for a long time, counting the risks, calculating the fall. Then she took my hand and laced her fingers through mine. One day at a time, she said. I nodded. One day at a time. It wasn't a love confession. Wasn't a promise ring or a grand gesture. Just two people in a small kitchen, holding hands over cold coffee, choosing something fragile and real. Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside, something had just begun. His voice, 6 months later *, the pipe never burst again. I fixed it properly the next weekend. She made dinner. I burned the rice. We ordered pizza and ate it on the floor because her table was covered in books she'd been meaning to read for 3 years. Small things. That's what no one tells you about the kind of love that starts wrong, or feels wrong, or looks wrong to everyone standing on the outside. They expect fireworks and ultimatums and dramatic exits. What we got was Tuesday. Tuesdays where I left my sweaters at her place on purpose. Where she started keeping my brand of coffee in her cabinet. Where David stopped calling, not because she changed her number, but because he finally heard something in her voice that was an invitation. I'm seeing someone, she'd told him. Asterisk, and for the first time, I'm not sorry about it. Asterisk, the last thing she said to me before we moved in together wasn't poetic. We were standing in her, our hallway. Boxes everywhere. Her ex-husband's last photo finally taken down. She was holding a lamp in one hand and a toothbrush in the other, looking exhausted and 44 and completely, terrifyingly real. I'm still scared, she said. Me too. That doesn't go away, does it? I took the lamp. Set it down. Took the toothbrush. Set it down. Then I held both her hands and waited until she looked me in the eye. No, I said. It doesn't. But scared and wrong aren't the same thing. She leaned into my chest. Breathed out. You're too young to be that wise. I'm too young for a lot of things. I kissed the top of her head. Doesn't stop me. She stopped apologizing for her age. I stopped pretending I had time to waste. We learned that the loudest love isn't the one you shout. It's the one you choose again, every morning, when the coffee is cold and the world is heavy and there's no reason to stay except that you want to. Mira still taps her knee when she's nervous. 15 taps, then a pause. I still look at her too long. She still catches me. But now she smiles. Did you enjoy the story? If it stayed with you, if something felt real, or messy, or familiar, then thank you for listening. What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Slow burn romance with older women and younger men. Emotionally complex journeys about regret, guilt, or longing. Realistic love stories without perfect endings or cliches. Tell me in the comments. The next story might be yours.